Mhm. So you corresponded with her?
No, she didn't contact me.
Oh, okay. I had a feeling she wanted to. She was concerned that none of us could really appreciate what your situation was. Yeah.
I think it's really difficult. Myself, I'm struggling to understand really what's going on.
Yeah. My family have been. My daughter is here with me this weekend, and her and my wife have been quite adamant about saying that I shouldn't, or I should be very clear with a disclaimer that I'm not a therapist, and I'm not attempting to do that. And that's true. That is the case. All I can do is be authentic in describing my own experience with what goes on, and consequently, it is, of course, extremely unlikely that I can really understand what you experience. I can't. I can get a flavor of it for sure, but I can't actually know what it is that you go through. But the more you do talk, the more you show us yourself, the better we can understand what happens for you. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Duncan,
Good morning.
Jeremy, David.
Morning.
Or afternoon or evening or
Hi, it's evening here, 9 p.m. Yeah. Howdy, Don.
Morning or good evening. It's evening for you. You've left the car, Vince. Oh my gosh.
Yes, I'm not in the car tonight. Yeah, so
I recognize
we
you.
don't have any guests down here at the moment, so I've got the use of it. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. That's nice to have that. The car must be a bit claustrophobic after a while. As you're sitting there for 3 hours, it must be a bit.
To tell you the truth, I don't even notice where I am for a while. I'm so involved in what goes on here. Yes. Hi, Rowena.
Hi, Vince. Hi, everybody. I just going to get myself a cup of coffee, so I was just going to turn off.
Yeah,
I'll
no
leave it.
worries. You go and do that.
Leave
Yeah,
it.
then no problem.
Leave it here. Oh, Vince, you're not in your car.
I'm not. Yeah, it's yeah.
I'll be back in a sec.
No worries. I wondered, Jeremy, do they call you Jer in at home?
No. When I was growing up, though, it was germ.
A germ. Okay. Yeah, kids are good like that, aren't they? They always look at one way to do it. Yeah. Mm.
Don, I can't help but wonder what that thing next to your hand now is. It looks like some staff from the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf.
Yeah, kind of a. It's a kind of an ugly lamp. That's my parents.
Oh,
Yeah. This is my parents' house. So I know I can never get it out of the shot. I'd have to go over all the way there to this other lamp to get it out of the shot. Mm. My dad had lots of lamps. Well, there's still lots of lamps. And started off lots of nice little low wattage bulbs. Then because he couldn't read without light, every bulb here was 100 watts and was blastingly bright, every single bulb, in case so my dad could read. So everything was very, I don't know what it is now, but they're all very bright, these bulbs now. So anyway. We're slowly clearing the place now because my mother died in August. And it's a strange process. I guess I can sit here for another few months and then it'll be gone. And I walk past the grandfather clock and it doesn't say the right time. And it stopped last year for the first time, probably 42 years, because it needs to be, you know, the weights need to be pulled up once every about 7 days. And at some point last year, my mother was in hospital and nobody was here for more than a week, and it stopped for the first time in 42 years. So I thought it felt like a symbolic. So I walk past it now and I look, oh no, it doesn't say the right time. There's no point in winding it now because I won't be back for more than a week. So it's a strange end of an era thing. I'll still sit here for a little while and do my online retreats, but it'll be gone in a few months.
It must feel a bit weird clearing out 40 or 50 years of history.
Yeah, it does really. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is sort of the more of the administration part of it, or the work part. To be very honest, my sister is way better at, I don't know if the word is better, she just does more of it than I do. And she has to travel over from the States to do it, but she has done a lot more than I. But a lot of it's just the work of tidying up, and not a huge amount of sort of I don't know, sadness and stuff so much so far. Except, as I said a week or two ago here, I suppose, for me this year, coming back for Christmas and finding no parents anymore, that was kind of the first time I really had a strong sense of like, gosh, everything is different. So it's strange, yeah, a little bit. And now some of the stuff is like, I don't know, I noticed, I'll just ramble for a sec. I mean, my mother just lived her life as best she could day to day, so that was fine. And she didn't seem to even fear death. She genuinely didn't all the way to the end. Whereas my dad was so future focused, like I am too, like so, and he planned and planned and planned everything, and everything was for the everything was going to be the next thing and the next thing. And of course, there's no next thing from now. And it's just that feeling of how important everything was for my dad and how angry he was about getting everything the right way and planning things for the future. And now he's got no future. And I just, the feeling of that kind of intensity that he had for planning things and making things right for the future. And now the total absence of his future.
So
It's,
he died too?
He died too. Yeah, he died a year before my mother. Yeah.
Right.
They both died in the past year and a half. Yeah, about a year and 5 days apart. Yeah, and we thought my mother would go on for quite a while. You know, she had a lot of energy in her, but she found she had a tumor and got cancer, and she went in about 6 months last year, between February and August. So they both went in a year and a half. So it's quite a quick. You know, 2 years ago I had both parents, and now I don't have any. So it's and this is going to be, so when this house is gone, there's nowhere here in Limerick, where we are from, to come back to. My sister lives in the States, so I'm sort of the last person in the country, and I'm not married, I don't have anyone, so I'm on my own. So it's really going to feel quite on my own now this Christmas, or this, you know, last couple of months, noticeable.
So have you grieved? Have you experienced grief?
Probably am now. I mean, I didn't really, for my parents one by one, I didn't really. I didn't even know what that's supposed to be. I mean, the short answer is no, but like none of us were felt incredibly sad about my dad. You know, we talked about him a bit, but he was quite controlling and angry, and we were more a feeling of relief not having him here, to be honest. When myself and my mother and my sister were here for 6 months, so on and off afterwards, and we were just, it was much nicer being here. And the saddest thing about that was just that sense of relief we had, because he was always so angry and difficult to deal with. With my mother, I felt like we had 6 months of seeing her go bit by bit, and we had, you know, a week or so for a few days if we're drifting away, and we were there when she died and held her hand and so on. So I felt a little bit sad every now and then, but I didn't go through stages, and I wasn't bawling, crying and stuff. But now, I don't know, since this Christmas, because of a number of other things happened in between, to sort of make me a little bit more unhappy and feel a bit more alone in the world. So now I feel quite unstable about my whole life in general. So I'm not sure if that's grief for my parents or a whole bunch of other things combined with. I do feel like there's no foundation under me since I came home before Christmas. And I don't know how much of that is grief for my parents, and much of it is sort of little recent heartbreak thing and a couple of other little things, all combined together. Yeah, I don't know how you, like, even the way you say it, Vince, like, it sounds like something you can do and at a process you can choose to. I don't know how to do it or what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. No, I'm not even suggesting that you should grieve. I don't know. You know, it's rather interesting, and often when we do, when we do grieve, it's a culmination of things. It's not actually about the obvious thing, you know. So it's a tricky one. But what I'll tell you an experience that I had that I found really interesting, and that was that only some 3 months after I woke up, my sister-in-law died, and she was a good friend of mine, and her and my wife were very close, and she died of breast cancer, and my wife actually looked after her for quite some time, like 2 years. So we were traveling 1,000 miles away to her place to look after her and so on. And one of the things I realized was that there was a difference between grief and sadness. So, and I wasn't experiencing any grief. And for me, the definition of grief is that there are a lot of stories about it shouldn't have happened, etc. Whereas the sadness was something that was really, it sounds weird, it was sweet. It was a sad, sweet feeling, and it comes back even as I talk about it. I can feel it, but it's like it's a physical thing that happens rather than there are no stories about it. It's not about a loss. It's not about anything. It's just there. It's a weird one. It's really hard to put words into it, but yeah. So that's something that I've carried with me ever since. You know, those two things are quite different: sadness and grief. Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know the difference either. I have once or twice said this about my mother. At one time, I was on the phone a month or two ago, and somebody asked me if I'd seen the moon that night, and I was told I had to go out the front and look at the moon, so I did that. And that was one of the things my mother used to text me about, because I think like when I was 3, she used to show me the moon. So every now and then she'd text me and go, "Have you seen the moon?" And then if I did, I'd text her and say, "Have you seen the moon?" So that reminded me of my mother, and I felt a little bit sad, but it was like sweet, like you say. And if we see the moon, I send the odd text to my sister about the moon. And that's nice. But the grief thing, there was no, I mean, there was a little bit of, well, more than a little bit of anger about the doctors in the hospital not communicating throughout the whole of last year. So maybe she would have lasted for 3 or 6 months longer if they hadn't completely fucked everything up. But in the end, I'm like, yeah, you know, it's all right. It was fine the way it was. There was no stories about it shouldn't have happened there. Yeah. My heartbreak story is full of it shouldn't have happened, but I'm not going to talk about that in detail. But that's pretty intense, that one. But I don't know. I feel like it should be a great opportunity for me now. Again, I'm feeling self-conscious about talking for too long, as you can imagine. But yeah, as usual, right? I feel like it should be a great opportunity in this kind of awakening space that I feel like utterly hopeless. It feels like there is no. I have this kind of automatic thing of I'm going to look forward to something. Something is going to happen next weekend. I'm going to meet someone tomorrow. Something's going to happen next week. I'm going to do so. There is fucking nothing. There is nothing to look forward to whatsoever. There is nobody I'm going to meet. There's no one is going to cheer me up. I'm just totally lost. And I'm going, this is a great opportunity for me to be in the present moment. Wow, I'm so lucky. But I feel flipping miserable every day, though. Oh my gosh. And it sometimes wakes me up with a fright at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And I feel so sad. I can't get back to sleep, or so frightened. It's unbelievable. And I'm like, wow, what an opportunity for meditation. But I just, oh my God. I mean, all I can do is try to be optimistic and go, I'll use that to see that looking to the future for happiness isn't any use to me. But anyway.
So what comes to mind for me is that yeah, you see something quite clearly intellectually.
Yeah.
But you're not sinking into it, so to speak. Yeah, that thing about having no future is, for me, that's a brilliant freedom. And for you, it's the opposite kind of thing. So, but you see that, you understand that at one level, it seems to me. But
yeah, it's weird.
Go on, somebody else.
Yeah, can I enter the conversation? I was also going to just say that it's so interesting on levels, because you know, the intellectualizing about future, but what you were saying, Don, it's all thinking. Now, it's all thinking, content of thought. And what is thinking? Where is the thinking coming from? This is a helpful question, because when you are caught up in, oh, I have no future, nothing's happening, that is a thought. And are you, Don, the thinker of your thoughts? And if so, what is the next thought that's going to arise? Can you know that ahead of time?
No.
So, and it's a wonderful moment to catch, oh yes, and these are just thoughts. So there's no truth to them, but the thoughts are pointing inwards always. Always. So how does it feel? How does it feel to have no future?
Yeah, I do try and do that. I can do it now, I suppose, too, but I do try and do that as long as I can. I guess what happens, and I know this is what I have to do and keep doing. I feel totally alone, which I guess we all are. And I just sit there feeling totally alone.
Again, a thought.
The dramatic thing is, can I talk to anyone about this? I'm like, no, you sit here. And that's I battle with that kind of sitting and always trying to distract myself. So I do sit as long as I can and feel the sensations, and be on my own. But the automatic thing is to get away and distract, and I try and.
Don, you're talking about it instead of
Yeah.
I know.
right,
Yeah.
you to feel it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, how does it feel to feel alone? And I think this is the big thing. It takes a while to sort of, in a way, make the pathways of sensation more alive in connecting to the body. So in the beginning, it's really difficult. It's like, because it's always like bouncing back up to the mind. I feel alone, and you can't even almost feel what it feels like to feel alone. But then you can, if you feel like you want to explore the feeling more of the body, you can just obviously use your own sense of touch with your hands to sort of calm you into the body, because it's the calmness that then allows the body sensations to be felt. When there's mind activity, it's much more difficult. So it's really, there's this practice of little by little, not thinking, oh, I should sit quietly, but you can sit quietly and be in a very mental place and say, I feel alone. But it's a sort of allowing yourself to sink. And it's a practice. So all the time, anything like unworthy or useless or alone, it's like, okay, how does that feel in my body? And they're always pointers, even if it's just looking for a minute and then you're jumping out again. That's part of the process.
So as you start to feel, as you move down away from or through thoughts towards the feeling, what's likely to happen is that you'll have other thoughts that will say, oh, I better not go here because the blah, blah, blah. I better not go here because it might open a floodgate and I'll never recover from it, or it'll be horrible, or whatever. There are thoughts that are attached to, how can I put it, the pathway down to those feelings. The irony is, when you get down to those feelings in a kind of a pure way, they won't be anything like you expect. They will be freeing. They will be something I don't know how to put it. But so as you get into the feeling, as you get into feeling the feeling, be aware of everything, thoughts, activity, anything that will be a diversion away, be a block from getting into those feelings.
Yep. It's not too bad a lot of the time, the sensations on their own. Sometimes there's a lot of fear, a good lot of days. I may have said that previously. Sometimes a lot of fear. I feel afraid of death all the time for days and days. Sometimes the sensations like now aren't too bad. And it's surprising. And sometimes, like I'm talking about now, not just theorizing, I think, but it's surprisingly okay. The sensations, the feelings aren't terrible. But the habit to go and look at something in the future is so strong. I'm constantly dragging myself back, and there's nothing really wrong with the present most of the time.
Yeah. Can you see though how the attraction to looking at the future stuff is a way of avoiding the present? Do you see that?
I kind of do. It's funny, but the stories are quite strong. The story about my job or my finances or something is so strong, and they tell me that sitting in the present is a distraction from dealing with my responsibilities for my ongoing. That's what their view on that is much stronger.
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? Yeah.
I should be tidying up the house more before my sister comes the next time. I should be doing something with my career. I should be something. and I shouldn't just be sitting here doing my meditation. So I don't see it the other way. I prefer to see it the other way around. And sometimes I kind of do. I see like the present is just fine, and the present would always be just fine. If I wasn't catastrophizing about something, it would just be fine. But yeah, I have to keep persuading myself of that. I think I don't
Okay.
see it clearly.
So I heard you say a few times there, I shouldn't do this or that or whatever. Yeah. And you know what I'm going to say
Yeah.
about that right away, don't you? Yeah. But
Possibly I shouldn't be saying I shouldn't, is it?
you shouldn't be saying shouldn't. But the value there is in laughing every time the word should or shouldn't pops up. Right? We don't try and not do it. We just laugh at recognition that it's happening. Because it's so appealing to get into that line of stuff, isn't it? You know, but and you know that again, you know it intellectually. You know all this stuff intellectually, don't you?
No.
I can see you do.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
I do. That's the thing. It doesn't translate to the whatever experience or the feeling much. A lot of the time, I understand a lot of, and that's the laughing. And I've heard you saying about the laughing thing. I don't know how easy it is for most people. I just feel too bloody miserable to laugh most of the time. I get annoyed, but I try and remember what you say about laughing, and I try to drag my mouth into a smile or something. It's just, I can do it now talking to you, but
well, you don't even have to laugh. Thinking about laughing, even if you think about it and go, well, fuck that, I'm not going to do it. Right? That's okay too, because what it is a recognition of that moment. And that's what it's all about, recognizing that moment that you were about to get lost in whatever it was going to go on. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. There's a new face. Tracy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. I think. I'm not sure. I never know how to answer that question. Yeah.
You just are.
Tell us where you're up to on this journey.
I've been really good actually. I've gone through a big transition in life. I've separated from my partner, and normally I would be quite stressed at the moment because I'm maintaining 2 households until one sells. And I just feel really at peace. I can pick up now if my mind starts going to that place. It's really easy for me to just say, they're just thoughts, like in this very moment, everything is okay. I don't need to make any, I don't need to catastrophize anything. I can just sit in this moment and it's okay. Everything's okay. And I just have a trust now that everything's going to be okay.
Right. That sounds really good. So why are you here?
Yeah. Just a check-in, really. I haven't been able to make it to a meeting. I watch your videos back on YouTube, but I just there's always something that hits me.
Yeah, there's no end to this stuff, is there, really?
No. And it's just gentle reminders, like what you were saying before about touching yourself, that recognition. I'm getting better and better at that, but everything helps, and I find that listening to these meetings, it just reinforces everything, really.
Right. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
How are you traveling, Duncan?
How's my sound?
Good.
Right on. I'm okay. I'm just listening with a lot of empathy for Don there. I had a bit of a tough day with mind attacks, and I know this stuff intellectually as well, but I couldn't stop it. It was like there's a bunch of things, and I had a group awareness exercise with some of the POK people last night, and it was wonderful. I sank into a place of real stillness and peace and divinity. And then I woke up this morning and wow, it was really intense. I'm getting evicted from my house halfway through the contract, and because of some renovation work needs to be done, and my blood pressure was through the roof, and it's been great for like a couple of months. What else did I have? I got rejected by a girl for a date. Oh my God. And then I'm asking, why do I need this validation? Where am I going to live? And then I went and looked at a service department and realized I was going to have to put all my furniture in storage or throw it away. And then I went into the forest, and it didn't let up. It probably got worse. So I thought some nature would help. And then I'm looking, okay, stop adding the story. Just look at the sensation. And then the sensation would create the story, or the story would then create the sensation. I was just caught in this loop. The good thing was I said, oh, fuck it. I'll just come back to this later or tomorrow or something. And I feel okay now. But at the time, I know all this little hacks to stop the mind attacks, and I should be in the present. I tried some body scans and tried doing some questioning to return to peace, and it wasn't happening. So I just accepted that, actually. And then maybe it got better. Oh, well, today's not going to be the day.
So that moment of wonderful peace that you experienced yesterday, that would probably be the worst thing that could have happened to you. That gave you some expectations, something to strive for. Yeah. Look, these are only words, but if you can get a hold of what's behind the words, it doesn't matter what shit turns up. It's all okay. Okay, we don't try and fix the shit. That's where we go wrong, when we try and fix it. I want to get back to feeling peaceful. Right. I want to chase that.
I'm still think I have control, or the illusion of control. Like, my house is getting evicted. I need to find a new place, and instead of just letting it unravel and unfold, and it's all going to sort itself out.
Yeah. So we're calling you Mr. Fixer, eh?
Just for today.
Yeah.
I'll surrender later. Yeah. But for a case study, you can use me today. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, obviously we all want to feel good, and we kind of, there's a whole lot of stuff gets around that, wanting to feel good all the time. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen that we feel good all the time. Ever. My wife thinks this is a load of shit. She thinks that I'm just totally the wrong person to be talking about this stuff, because I lose it all the time. I get upset, I get angry, I get whatever, and I can't get through to her that it's okay. It doesn't hang around anymore like it used to, but it still happens. Maybe one day it won't. Maybe, I don't know. But at the moment it does. Yeah. It's nothing.
Okay.
We're not here to fix anything. Yeah.
To be fair, it hasn't hung around. It was quite a intense little day for me. I was like, well, I've done all this work for a number of years, and I meditated this morning, and I did some gratitude and some forgiveness, and woohoo!
All these things.
No. And she came.
Yeah. But I see you smiling, and that's a big thing. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
I feel pretty light at the moment. It's fine.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. How are you traveling, David?
I think what I see lately is watching things settle, and it seems like day to day change, where um, there's more acceptance of non-doing, even though intellectually I have accepted that for a lot of years. I guess the body told a different story, and I think all of these, like participating in the meetings, I still consume a lot of videos, and I find that helpful because I'll hear something and it will just pop a bubble, and so I see things sort of consolidating, and at least that's the way it feels or looks.
Okay.
So I think like at that deeper level where there's that relation to thought that's not automatic in the beginning. Once disidentification is accepted intellectually, it seems to me it takes time for the body to adjust, and for that to become like a natural pathway, rather than one that needs a few steps to happen to get back to. So it's not so much an intellectual process anymore, so that it becomes automatic, and that's still in transition. It's far from automatic.
Yep. That'll go on for a long time, possibly, at least in my experience, it goes on for a long time. Yeah. Because the body has it's conditioned, and we're conditioned not almost, but we're conditioned at a cellular level as well as an intellectual level, because we've had a lifetime of seeing things in a certain way. So yeah, yeah.
And I have this story that I was one who lived in fantasy as an escape, and so the tendency to go into the mind is very strong. So I guess that I recognize that those are just thoughts. But I just see, it seems to me like that's evolving, like it's playing out, and it needs to settle and consolidate.
Yeah.
And I see that happening.
That's an interesting one, and yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah, I remember. I don't know. I was probably less than 12 years old, because I can remember where I was when it happened. I was walking home from primary school, and I used to read. I used to live in books, like your fantasy. My fantasy world was out from books, and I was walking home from school reading a book, and I remember having the thought that the world inside my head was far better than the actual so-called real world. And you know what? There's an irony, and that is that's where the real world happens. The real world comes out of our thoughts. We create it with our thoughts. So we're gonna go from the fantasy world to the real world, like in and out, or out and in, whatever, in that way. Yeah. That's an interesting one. So what we take for the real world is in fact the fantasy world. It's all everybody's got their own interpretation of what that real world is, and what we might consider to be the absolute, which we can often equate to the real world. That absolute is unknowable. We don't know what it is. Everybody's only got their own interpretation of that. So yeah, it's just a different fantasy to the to the one we used to escape when we were younger or before. Yeah.
It's interesting the way that different voices bring a different perspective or a different articulation, and something that someone says at one time can really hit home, or be just the thing where the mind was hung up, and then hearing that person, wherever they're coming from, it will kind of release something just because it strikes in the right way.
Yeah. As you were talking, something else came to mind, and that was that we're all addicts, all of us seekers or ex-seekers, if you like. We're all addicts, and we're addicted to getting high on this stuff, and we do. I remember as a seeker, not long, probably only 12 months or so before I woke up, or maybe not even that long ago before I woke up, I used to listen to Jed McKenna as the audio books that he wrote, and I used to get really high on listening to them. I'd listen to them maybe 3 or 4 times each book. Every time I got in the car, I was listening to them for ages and ages, and I got really high listening to them, you know. And watching videos can do exactly that, or listening, or even these meetings can do that. I get quite high in these meetings. It feels great for me. And there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. But there is a recognition that are we looking for that high with a lot of the things that we do? And especially if, you know, like interesting, once I woke up, I gave away my library of books. I had well over 100 books, and additional to that was CDs and other things that I had that I've hardly read a book or watched a video ever since. So I don't know what that means. Yeah.
I realized that, like if I talk to someone I haven't spoken to in a while, I don't have anything to communicate to them about where I am or what. Like I think of how it must look from their perspective. It must look kind of like empty, that I don't have anything to tell them as far as what my interest is, because it wouldn't bother. And
They're
so I
not
don't
gonna
have much to say.
understand. Yeah.
But I don't have any other interest anymore. Not much.
Yeah.
And I look forward to these meetings each week now. But the other interests have just fallen away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
In a
resonate
way,
with that.
Yeah,
yeah.
same.
And I think it feels good because it's like, how did I not see this all those years? How is it not always like this? How was I not drawn to what is drawing me toward it now?
Well, I was a seeker for well over 40 years. So, I often think about, well, what would have happened if I'd have woken up all those years ago? But then I realized, of course, that all of that stuff had to happen before I did.
You said before that you knew for like a year before, and I've wondered how did you know? What did that feel like?
It was just a feeling of, and I started a blog at the time, and I called it On the Verge, Vince on the Verge, and I felt like it was imminent. It was just a sensation, just a feeling. Yeah, it was kind of like I knew. Well, and of course, it was just a story in my head, and because I did wake up, our mind immediately says, "Well, I must have known something," but I don't know if that's true or not. Yeah, but that sense of imminence was there. Yeah.
Was it based on changes in say your
The changes were pretty constant for me all the way through, especially towards the last few years. I mean, one of the things that there was a period where I was going to non-duality meetings, and there's a bloke called Sailor Bob in Melbourne. And I travelled 1,000 miles to see him and go to a couple of his meetings and so on. And I got nothing out of it, except I got this really strong feeling that it's possible for me, an ordinary person, to wake up. That was what the non-duality stuff gave me. And that's about all. I don't remember anything else about it. Yeah.
On Kevin Shanelek's website, he uses the word reconciliation, and I want to link the word consolidation. I wonder if it felt like that, like becoming, like there's so much more that one just becomes reconciled to, because there is no other option. There's nothing. There's no one to stand apart. And so reconciliation is the natural resting point.
Yeah, it doesn't ring any bells for me, but that being obsessed does. I was absolutely obsessed with waking up. Yeah.
But would you say that, I mean, it's giving into powerlessness, giving up that sense of the possibility of doing something against or apart from what's already happening?
Well, like all seekers, I imagine, it was, my library of books and reading and listening and so on. It was kind of back before YouTube was a big deal. There was a lot of doing. There was a lot of doing going on, but that moment I woke up, that was very much a case of, oh wow, that doing is what's getting in the road. That sudden realization that this is it. Whatever it is, however much shit's going on, whatever I'm feeling, this is it. That was just such a liberating, oh, it makes me, the hair on the back of my neck stand up when I just think about it. Yeah.
And when so-called undesirable things happened subsequent to that,
they're still
was
it.
there,
Yeah, absolutely.
and so was there right away less kicking against it?
Absolutely. It was like, I recognized that by the time I became aware of what it was going on, it was already finished. There was that absolute acceptance that there is no point in even thinking about it, let alone wanting it to be different, because it was done. So it was kind of like, it wasn't a case of accepting that this is it. It was a case of recognizing that this is it. Now, I hadn't thought about that like that before, but that's a very big distinction. It wasn't a case of accepting, although I talk about accepting and surrender. That's not really the case. It was a case of recognizing that there is no, this is it. Does it sound like a subtle difference to you? It's a big difference here.
No. And I what it brings to mind is like the chemical changes in the body that it must bring about.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the word recognize is, I've been sort of thinking about that, like when I've been working in the visual field, for example, and just seeing, it's like it's before perception. It's recognized as something, I don't know how you can talk about recognition, so that it seems like the perfect word, because I don't know how, it's like we know what it is to recognize. There's something in our cellular structure, in our memory maybe, like the deja vu things, which you think I've never been here before, but I know it, or so it's a curious, I mean, this is my interpretation, my story about recognize is that it's prior, it's not fully mental, there's something of a more cellular, to use the whole system as a cellular system. Would you have similar thoughts about that word?
What comes
Well,
here,
as opposed to what Vince was saying, not accepting, recognizing it's such a different, there's such a different feel to it. When you were talking, Vince, you're looking perplexed. I don't know.
No, I'm not perplexed. No, no. I'm waiting for David, what David thinks about it. Yeah.
I tend to use that word a lot too. I like that word recognition. It strikes me as the dawning of clarity.
Well put. Yeah, I like that. Mm.
Reminds me of something that I've heard someone say where it's like how arrogant it is to think that like you're going to allow things to happen as they are and accept things they are, and it feels like that recognition is the one step past that. Like you understand that it doesn't matter whether you are allowing it or letting it flow as it does. It's like it has nothing to do with what
Yeah. Yeah.
That reminds me of the issue of that deep, the relation to thought, the fundamental position in relation to the content of thought. That's what I see as taking time to kind of settle and develop, because thoughts can have when you're totally mind identified, it's complete control. You're under the complete control of the content of thought. And so I wonder, Vince, how you would describe the opposite of that. Like you recognize what the content is, and you recognize that they're not truth, that they arise and pass without necessary consequence.
Mm.
Do they still leave residue?
Well, like it comes back a bit, yeah, because of habit and conditioning, I guess. So that moment of recognition, you know what, I'd never verbalized it like that before. This is the first time, like 12 years later, here I am verbalizing what actually happened to me in a way that seems more something. And as you're talking there, I'm thinking, you can't do discovering something.
No.
It happens, and it's a binary thing. It's from off to on or something like that. It's yeah, and recognition is a discovery, isn't it?
I think what I'm thinking of is like there are thoughts where you are indifferent, like we can be mostly indifferent to a lot of the content, but then there are some that's highly charged. And I wonder if it's ever possible to get to that point where they're sort of traceless. They leave no they leave no trace of themselves. They just come and go. Even what would be ordinarily very disturbing or sticky.
Yeah, yeah, things happen that are a bit hard to make sense of, like memory things. For example, it's these days I frequently don't even know what day of the week it is. I have to engage the mind to remember something that was memorable to work out what day of the week it is, kind of thing. So if I don't do that, that traceless thing that you say, that does appear to be happening, in that there is no residue because things aren't stored away in the way they used to be, which we imagine means that, or describes that, what we are present in what's going on without the conceptual overlay that results in a memory of it. That sounded a bit rambly, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems to me identity would have a lot to do with how much of a trace or not particular thought.
Absolutely. Yeah, big time. Right. The self exists as a story, but that story has to be repeated again and again and again to stay alive. If we don't repeat it, it drops away. Yeah. So it's amazing how I imagine it's amazing how I imagine people go through their whole waking time repeating stories about who they are and where they fit in the world, so to speak. Yeah. You know, I did read a thing, and I don't know how accurate it is, but it sounds good to me. We have 50,000 thoughts a day, and 83%, I think, was the figure that somebody came up with, are repetitions of the thoughts we had the previous day. There's not
Somebody
much.
count, I heard that before. Somebody did a spreadsheet, Vince, did they? And then they wrote down all the 50, and then they matched them against several days, one by one. When I heard that last time, I was like, who did that research? How do they work it? Count all those? Oh my God, and it must be so fucking tedious to do that.
Well, how would they capture 50,000 thoughts as well? That'd be really interesting. Yeah. 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 Where in the world are you at the moment, David Bonney?
Oh, I had some trouble with my visa and everything, but I was in Malaysia and now I just arrived to Vietnam. I'm in Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. Yeah. So if anyone is around for a tea, contact me.
Good one. I wasn't meaning to divert from you, David. I just get myself excited here, I do. So it sounds to me a little like you're on the verge of something, but yeah, you've crossed a few thresholds already, and there you are looking at another one, maybe.
Still getting hung up a lot. But I guess the tendency to unhook gets more natural too.
Yeah.
I think what is very interesting, it's about all of this process. It's like running toward the horizon, you know, the line of the horizon. I think that whenever you reach the place that you saw, there is always a new one, you know, and a new one. It's like, it's
Yeah.
true that there is a sense of, you know, of growing up and sensibility and all of this. At the same time, there is always an horizon, you know, there is always kind of this sense of I'm reaching, and this is deeper, this is deeper. It's beautiful.
Yep. Yeah, it feels like that for me, for sure. Yeah.
I want to take that a step further and maybe relate it to the idea of like realizing, like once you stop, there's something that can happen when you stop seeking so intensely, and that's like the realization that the horizon, no matter how much you continue to travel, there's always going to be the horizon. And like why should I keep running towards the horizon? I'm just gonna stop and look at it. It's a never ending.
Yeah.
Turn.
Yeah.
This is exactly to me, what really changed something is when I felt that reality, it's a paradox in the way we can think about it, you know, because it's true that we are always kind of feeling of running. At the same time, you are never, the experience is always here, you know, like there is a deepening of this sense of presence. At the same time, it's always the same one. It's always fully here, fully on. And when you feel presence, or you feel what is here, you always feel the totality of it, you know. But at the same time, you feel that is getting deeper somehow. So those two movements are just the way that, for me, the way nature presents itself to itself in a kind of this way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great concept, and to take it a little further, when seeking drops, that's the time when you can appreciate the beauty of the horizon.
Maybe those
Absolutely.
flat earthers got something right in that there is an end, and if you just run far enough, you'll reach it.
You'll go
Whereas
over
if
the
you
edge.
believe in a round or a sphere, it's never ending. You'll never get there.
Yeah. So when, and you know, it's another one. I'm discovering a few things tonight. When maybe seeking doesn't just drop 100%. I've always spoken of it like it did, like simply there was no more seeking. That seeking got replaced by discovering. Right? So rather than me running after or chasing something, there was me waiting and finding what came to me. So discovery was like that. But they can be mixed up, you know, so in the background, I was going to say in the back of the mind, but that's not right. In the background, there's always that idea that there's more to be discovered, and that's a kind of a seeking. But I'm no longer obsessively running, trying to get to it. I'll wait for it to reveal itself, which it does every day. Every day something reveals itself more and more. And I don't know that there's ever any end to that. Maybe there is, I don't know. That's why I often say, I have no idea what this thing called enlightenment is or what it's about. Maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe it doesn't. I just haven't got there yet, but I'll settle for just being awake at the moment. just recognizing that that's something else going on. Yeah.
Whenever we talk like this, I think of what Angelo says, that the unbinding goes on forever. And it makes me think of just more and more release from any level of identification.
Mm, mm.
I was
Because
listening to, just going back to the seeking idea or the discovery idea. He's a biologist, a neuroendocrinologist, Richard Selinsky or something. That's his name's correct name's gone, but and he's written a book, Determined, about the fact that there's no free will and humans are basically machines that are aware of their machineness. And he was talking about chemicals and dopamine, and what he was and he was saying it's not what we think it is. The same as testosterone, it's not what we think it is, but the dopamine is the urge, in a way, the drive to seek more, to keep moving. It's like I interpret it as, in my simplistic way, sort of as the chemical within us of desire, of so anything connected with desire, anything connected with motivation and goal orientation. And so looking at, from his perspective of biology, we're completely, from the moment that, whenever, I mean, it goes back to the Big Bang, there's no free will, it just is this. But it's from a biologist's perspective, it's understandable. The mind is thinking about, okay, when seeking ends, but we've got these chemicals that are also, which are also modulating all the time, because even though there's no free will, there's always change, and there's a predisposition to, there's no choice, but there's a predisposition to move in one direction or the other. And all that is all the time changing the chemical composition of this machine. And it's just wonderful, because it's so, on the one hand, it's not, they're not talking at all about what we're talking about, but there's this lovely way of looking at it from a more materialistic, scientific perspective.
I like that. I like that. That's yeah. So when we talk about identity, what we talk about is the afterthought that keeps coming along that says, well, I did that, or I want that, or I, whatever. And if we adopt that as a perspective, then we start to go, this body instead of I.
Yeah. But that's also a trap, because that's also a means of identification. So on,
If it's
there's
my
always,
body, yeah.
it's always slippery. It's a slippery thing, slope.
Yep. And so what we're doing here is breaking the link between the idea that we are conscious, we have free will, we have determination, we have control, all those kind of things, and something more fundamental, the reality that things just happen, that connection between the two things. And
what about the idea?
Go with that. Yeah, sorry.
What about the idea that we're physical?
Yeah, well, same thing. Who's physical?
Just the identification as being something physical.
Yeah. I know where I was going to go with that. Yeah, exactly. So there is this. Oh, I lost it again. God, in 3 seconds, I lost it. It'll come back or not.
you're talking about
Can say
identification.
because it's because I think there is a lot of imagination. That's where I am now, you know, because often we hear here on the places like the seeking drop, or there is less identification, there is this identification stop, or things like that. But from my perspective now, is more like what I am exists in all dimensions at the same time. So there's no problem for my being and and the being that you are to be fragmented in many beings and to have different levels of difficulty or suffering, just like a dream. So I think now what I feel is not like my identification will stop, or seeking will stop, or anything will stop. You know, it's the opposite. Like it's growing. You know, like there is this happening, but there is more. There is always more, and not in the sense of seeking, but just because being is really unlimited, and it's not just a word because it's fancy, but because it's really experience, and what we are, it's really unlimited. So identification always happen with whatever it's happening. It's just thinking. To me now, it's the nature what's happening to identify with it. And I think thinking that way can allow some rest and some kind of, it's okay, you know, but what's happened, it's okay. It's not about stopping, it's about seeing that there is always more. Okay, you are a miserable human being dying. Okay. So, and what else is there? You know, there is a world, there is the sun, there is this, there is that, and it's growing. You know, there is sensation, there is this. So, yeah. I think identification is not an obstruction to see clearly or to have a realization. I don't know how.
Yeah, that brought it back for me too. What all we have are stories, right? We used to have a lot of really, how would you put it, maladaptive stories that cause suffering. We wake up, we've just got a different set of stories. We can speculate about what the absolute is. The absolute is, are we a body? Is there a world? Well, it's just speculation. All we can do is have ideas about that. We can't not have ideas. We create the world with our ideas, just as we create ourselves with ideas. So what happens when we wake up? We don't not have any ideas anymore. Who do we know that has no ideas? Nobody has no ideas. We just have more practical ideas or better ideas, or however you want to put it, ideas that are closer to something. I don't know. But do we, what's the relationship between us and our ideas? What's our relationship to those ideas? That's really what we're talking about here. That's what it's all about. We don't know anything. We're quite happy that we don't know anything. Well, I am anyway. Not knowing anything is where freedom is. It's where I'm liberated from the confines of social structure and other people's opinions and all that kind of stuff. But I've still got ideas.
I really like the way you put that, Vince. It kind of resolves something that's been lingering in my head. And I guess I would say that, like, the ideas that I had before were correlated with so much suffering and stress and anxiety and worry and whereas now I see that they were only ideas and thoughts and stories. And I have actually replaced those with other ideas and thoughts and stories, but the distinction is twofold. It's one, my new ideas are nowhere near contributing to the amount of stress and anxiety and suffering that my previous stories were related to. And I see those as ideas and stories and thoughts that there's much more, and there's much more, much less attachment to them, is that these are true and I'm going to hold them very strongly and believe them, and it's going to hurt if these ideas are challenged and change. Whereas now there's much more of a loosely like kind of just letting them be in my hand instead of holding on to them, so that if something comes along that leads those ideas and stories to change, I'm very open to it. Because I just see them for what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, well put. So, Don, all we have to do is change a whole lot of your ideas into better ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Can I just ask a question about one that comes to my mind? I may have said before. So, you know, when you're talking about the 50,000 thoughts, I calculated that one time about a thought every 1.5 seconds, and I thought, gosh, that feels like peace to me. You know, I mean, there's a gap between thoughts. Oh my gosh, you know, my experience appears to be like 4 or 5 thoughts per second, and like really nonstop. And then there's like the space that sometimes that I've said I can sometimes notice a space or peace or silence or something, and maybe individual thoughts. And then inside that, there's also like the story of me, or the various stories of me, the feeling of me in the stories, that I can't even see the stories. And I feel like I'm identified as in these ongoing stories, and I'm reacting to the world and the various thoughts in that feeling of me. So the thoughts that come along one by one are just seemingly trivial in comparison to that feeling. I don't know what I'm even saying. And then, like, I don't know, just the other piece that relates to that sometimes is the word surrender or something, or letting go. I feel like in practice, surrender for me is often surrendering into the story and believing it completely and going off into a trance, rather, which that's not supposed to be what it is, but it feels like that. I feel I have to be really vigilant to stop myself going off there into those stories. And it's weird. So maybe that's not what you said. That was what was on my mind. I just find it kind of frustrating that the momentum of those habits is so strong, and I keep getting persuaded and dragged back into it, and there's seems to be a lot of it, even though I can stay seemingly present and watch it sometimes for long-ish periods. It just drags me back very quickly, or it just, even a very tiny subtle thought or two bring me back to it, and I feel I'm in it again, in this mind created whatever set of stories and identity, and I go, oh, how did I get back here again? I think I may have said that to you before. And I feel I have to really sit with gritted teeth and drag myself up out of that again into the present.
Okay, but yeah, so my wife and daughter say I shouldn't give advice. I'm not qualified to give advice, but what jumps up for me here is don't try and stop yourself from getting into those stories. Just recognize what is happening. Just see that what's happening. That's all. You can't control your mind. It's going to go where it's going to go. You don't know what your next thought is, as Rowena said earlier. Got no idea what your next thought's going to be. Don't resist it. Why fight it? You're only creating something else. You know, it's like you're shoveling snow, but instead of getting it out of the road, you're putting it up in front of you. Just watch what happens. And when you recognize that that's what you're doing, That's
Yeah.
worth a laugh, isn't it? It's pretty funny when you do that kind of stuff to yourself.
Oh, I don't know. I don't find that funny because I believe the bloody story. I get really upset and anxious and
But you
depressed
believe
and
another
stuff for
story. You
hours at a
believe the
time.
story that says you shouldn't be doing it,
Yeah.
and there's no end.
Yeah. I
to
probably believe
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
The way to stop it, like I said, something about something else earlier. In the background is the idea that one day these things won't happen. Right. So
Yeah.
that's a change from these things shouldn't be happening now.
I guess my story is that one day I won't automatically think they're about me, that I won't have to, like the word recognition or something you used before, that I'll recognize that those stories aren't about me as they arise, and I won't feel identified as the thing happens or something. That's what I was hoping would happen at some point.
Yep. Yeah. Well, of course, they're not about you because you don't exist. What they're about is a story that you've got, a book that you're reading about Don. You got this book of Don. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you thought it was a thriller or a drama, but in fact it's a comedy.
It's yeah. Yeah.
Just wanted to say I read the book last year, Soul for Happy by Mo Gaudat, whose son died in a routine appendix operation, and he was a Google engineer, and he kind of reverse engineered the idea that he shouldn't have died. And then he was like, well, he should have, and everything's fine and great. And wrote a book about it, well worth kind of looking into. But one of the things regarding better thoughts is he went into the science that you can change your thoughts. So when a thought keeps popping up that's bothering you, a negative thought, you tell your brain to send a better thought, a kinder thought, and this will actually create new neural pathways. And after a few months, you should be starting to see a few flowers in the garden.
That's interesting. What did you say the book's called? Soul for Happy.
Solve for Happy. Yeah, he's on a lot of podcasts as well, and well worth watching. Very engaging character.
What was his name again?
Mo Gaudat. I'll put it in the chat, guys. He's an Egyptian, I think, originally, and then he was working for Google, and then his son died, and he went into that rabbit hole and came out convinced that everything was just fine.
Strikes me as a diversion from what we're looking at.
Yeah. Again, yeah, I'm throwing up concrete stuff.
It's reinforcing control and doing, and an identity as someone who can change what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it may be that it on the surface it appears like a doing. It appears like if you do this, then that will happen. That's the way the mind works as well. But the reality, of course, is that he had the intention. It arose. The intention arose.
Bye.
To change. So,
or the reframing helps with
yeah,
acceptance and surrender.
It would help on one level, and we're looking beneath that level. Is it? Would you agree with that?
Well, what I would also say though is that there's a lot of things that aren't accurate that are useful. And where Don is such a different place to where you are that it may be a stepping stone for Don. Now, I saw him be interested in that. He liked the idea that he could do something. And although we know that doing is not really doing, it's just a delusion, it may well be a useful stepping stone for him. I wouldn't dismiss it for that reason. But yes, yeah, levels again, levels, or well, levels are a shitty way to put it, but yeah, steps might be a better way to put it.
Yeah, Rupert Spira uses the word concessions. Like it's a concession to one level of understanding.
Yeah.
Teachings are that way. They speak to a specific state of understanding.
Yep. Yeah.
And then you work your way through it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know. I know, see, Bianca, you have your hand up. Sorry, I was just going to say, it's probable that I would look into something like this for about an hour maximum, and I would find that it didn't work, or I wouldn't have the energy to make it work or something. And I prefer the approach we're taking here, even though I can't. I'm impatient for it to make me feel better or something. But I still feel that I still feel pretentious saying this all the time. But I've even right now experience presence and silence and whatnot that feels like me, as it were. Like I feel a space of presence here, and yet within that there's this confusion, all these stories going on, and it's strange.
And you're still unraveling a lot of those stories. You're still seeing how those stories grab you. You know how they're the tentacles of the stories. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, the presence seems much more appealing in some sense, like real and appealing and calm and peaceful and so on. And yet I have to watch continuously to stop myself going into stories about what terrible stuff is going to happen to me next week. But I have to worry about it.
Don't stop yourself. Let them happen. And I know that I believe that you will be aware of them when they do happen now. You know, a couple of weeks ago, maybe not, but now, yes, I think you will be aware of them. And that's what counts. It's not a matter of stopping them. Right? Your nature is going to do what nature does. And the nature of your thoughts is going to be the nature of your thoughts until they're not. So, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. And if that book does nothing but give you the idea that things can change, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So another story that I see in what you were saying was that, yeah, in as well as you experience that peace and calm, there is still the idea that it is me. I hear that. I hear you saying that somewhere. And what I want to say is that's okay, because you recognize that that's what's happening. You know, the way we change things isn't trying to change things. The way we change things is accepting them.
Yeah. I guess it just feels the identity of me, the subject of all the stories, isn't the only identity that's here. It feels like, or even funny enough, when I say, I think of Rupert Spira often uses the phrase "I awareness," and I sometimes, but I wouldn't even when I feel that, I go, it doesn't even feel like an identity. It just feels like what's happening. But the me in the stories is still very strong, and I watched that, you know, activity going on now here, the feeling of it, and I guess with a certain amount of frustration. Yeah, I guess kind of going, why do I still believe that? I know the word, I shouldn't be asking why, should I? But anyway, it still feels like a proper feeling of me that I'm looking at going, oh, got sick to death of it now.
Okay, so I get this feeling, Don, that boy, you are so close. You know, you are so close to recognizing that. And maybe I'm just playing with myself when I say that, but when I feel that, but I do feel that, you know. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but that's what I feel. So, you know, what does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
Don
I don't know.
did say that he notices gaps. Last night I read a line from Adyashanti where he says, experience the gaps and let them bloom inside you.
Yeah. That's sort of been my approach for the last few months, really.
Yep. But he said, let them. He didn't say make them.
Make them. No, I want to make them. Damn.
Yeah. It's wonderful, tricky stuff, but look, this is better than Netflix, isn't it? You know, this is great. I love it. Yeah.
Bianca has her hand up for a few minutes.
Oh, I pass.
Now. About these stories that we have all the time, and they don't go away. Last time I compared myself to a person with Alzheimer who doesn't know where she is or what for she came here, or and who is she, and there was also a feeling of hurt because of being deceived, and it was not by ill will, but I was deceived by other Alzheimer persons who were making their stories. Where are we, and what should we do, and there is still this hurt, and there is distrust, and now you know, I see that Vince is selling this story about awakening or something, and maybe he is another Alzheimer person who doesn't know what he's talking about. There is also sadness, but this is how we are. I suspect this is how we are, and the story that came back to me as about.
Do you do food? It's a restaurant. Do you do food? It's a restaurant here. No, but it's doing good. Okay, thank you.
The story about the Emperor of United States, if you know this. There was a man, Abraham Norton, I think, lived in San Francisco. He was a businessman, but then he went bankrupt and he went mad. And he imagined he is Emperor of United States. And he was taking his duties very seriously, and he was very loved in San Francisco, known. When he died, there was a crowd of people that came to his funeral. And in a way, it's a happy story because he had found his own story that made his life meaningful for himself, and he stayed kind and humble as this Emperor of United States. So that's also people still liked him in his madness and accepted it. I don't know if this is the best what can happen, but it's still sad.
I guess that's what we're all trying to achieve. Yeah. Doesn't matter if the rest of the world calls us mad, if we're feeling good about it. That's what we want, isn't it? So in a way, there was no deceit.
You mean in case of the Emperor of United States?
Mm.
Yes, he believed his
Mm.
story wholeheartedly. Yes, and it's there is no ill will in these deceits. But still, I felt hurt as myself, that my parents deceived me as to the who I am, what am I for here, where I am.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Were they not also deceiving themselves about their own role in life?
Yes.
Mm. But that deceit isn't deceit when it's done with uh, when it's done without ill will. Maybe you could say that's not really deceit.
Mm. I know it's not deceit, but I feel deceived and hurt.
Yes.
It's a head and heart level.
Mm. So the connection between your feelings of hurt and that whatever it is, that the way they were is where your hurt comes from, the connection between you and that. They had no ill will. I don't imagine they had no ill will. But they believed what they were doing, what they were saying, how they were feeling. They believed that was genuine, I imagine. And you can even see that. You can even see that they were genuine in their belief. Yet you still feel deceived and hurt. That's a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, maybe you can call it disappointment
Say
or
that again.
disappointment.
Disappointment.
or-
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So therefore, there's a story that it should have been different.
Yes, there was a belief
Yeah.
that my parents know what they are doing, what they might fall here,
Mm.
and this belief.
Yep.
So there was broken trust.
Mm. So would it be accurate to say that there is a disconnect between I don't know what between what they were expressing and what you received. That's messy, I know. Something was broken. There's something broken somewhere. Would you say that? Was it?
Mm.
Yeah. It's subtle, isn't it? It's very subtle. That their intent was honourable, but your receipt of that went wrong somewhere. Would you say? Go on, Rowena. Yeah.
I was going to say I can relate to what Bianca's saying. It was in a way there was a lot of anger and grief at one stage, as this sense of disillusionment and feeling, yeah, just having bought into the lies and sort of tried to work so hard to follow along with all the ideas and the stories that I told myself, that I can relate. And I think yes, it was wanting to hold on to my fantasy and having it poked little holes in the illusions that I created. And in the beginning it's really painful, but I realized that there's still that process, that it's just like a feeling of another layer of the fantasy of what this body mind thought life was about, and getting the satisfaction and achievement. So I think it's very natural. Very natural to have those feelings, because I certainly did have them.
So disappointment comes to mind. Is that a big part for both of you? Disappointment?
Well, I would say disappointment and disillusionment.
Right.
Because actually here, but it happened before I was in the sort of spiritual scene, like law of attraction and making the energy, in awareness, living in awareness type of thing. And so top half and looking for sort of the bliss and then it was like all of a sudden things started going, the nihilism arose. And so the things that I had had pleasure with and followed and believed in, everything came to an end. It was all the sort of seemed like all the joy came to an end, because I started to question why I even love these things. And I loved art and music and all these things. And somehow I'm sort of in a way still in it. I almost used the word refusal. It's like all that is a lie. This here, the mind, everything, the way it was programmed is all a lie. And it's just got to sort of close down and find its way through a lot of, darkness. And it's like, what's in the way of truth? What's in the way of truth? So then it's like the layers of just going into this, body sensation and looking at really some very dark thinking. And little by little, somehow through reading the right little posts on YouTube videos, I found other ones, and one, who knows, finding LU, and then and Angelo and various, somehow there was always this guiding of like, okay, look here. But it's been actually a really long process of just getting out of the way of what is and removing all ideas, and feeling this big word for me was, and I can still say in a way it still is, it's refusal. It's like, no, it's like, maybe it'll be nice, maybe it won't be nice, I'll say, but I can't, it feels not authentic to be enthusiastic about things. It's just like, here I am right now, and actually there's nothing wrong with here I am right now, but I'm not going to get pulled away by some sort of idea about receiving pleasure in the future. It's sort of that. It's like, no, I'm not going to go there, not because I don't want to, but it doesn't seem that there is refusal. So I can also say no and then thaw out. So that's been looked into. But at the same time, it's sort of finding this truthfulness of just this, and not either refusing, being in a state of refusal, which is just a sensation in the body. It's just a word. It's just a word. So how does it feel? How does refusal feel? And little by little, getting out of this entanglement, but actually, relating to what you're saying, Bianca, I mean, it's been a long and interesting journey. And for me, the biggest thing is with all these ideas, because I went top down, like into the spiritual realm and saying, oh, it's going to cleanse and a lot of energy healing and all that sort of thing. I'll cleanse it from energy, because energy comes first before physicality. And then it was sort of turning the whole thing, like that didn't work, into like, what's in the way right now, and what's the mind interpreting as being something wrong, but what is that really that pointing to in the body, and saying, okay, well, that's just it's just the sensations, and somehow the relaxing of the body into more and more openness and lightness, and to breathe. And even contractions, that word is like, okay, how does contraction feel? And sometimes it's painful, but sometimes it's a sort of like a heat, but no need to describe. So that's a little bit the journey process here.
So Bianca's nodding. I was interested, Bianca, did you relate to the first part of Rowena's story there? not so much how she climbed out of that place, but when she was in that place, I imagine is a bit how you're feeling. Did you relate to that?
I feel like annihilationism was always my story, and I was told it's bad. Don't go there.
Another thing that I also got from this flip from the spiritual, where everything's, you know, lovely, good, loving, is I really, really started to embrace everything that was named bad. I completely opened myself to it. And I used to do kinesiology and something called body talk. And so at one time when I was really like, there were voices saying, you're really bad. You're really bad. You're just bad through and through. You were born like that. It's some sort of karmic debt or whatever. I just sort of sat quietly, and I'd already had an awakening at that time. But I just sort of sat with it, and I literally did kinesiology on myself, and I said, my body, I said, am I bad? And it was like, no. And there was a sort of openness that came. And then I said, am I good? No. And it was just, that was really a hugely expansive moment. And since that time, it's like all these little gremlin voices of you know, ill will. It's like, welcome. It's like a little child being, you know, like, I hate you, mom, I hate you, you know, whatever, I hate my life, and it's just little voices and sort of like, welcome, they're welcome. They're really welcome. And that was also a huge shift from, because they're pointing to something, they're pointing to some wounding, and so therefore they need to be there. So ill will is beautiful because it's sort of like it's pointing to parts of whoever. We all have, you know, we all have that, and it's so needs to be welcomed as much as being nice and kind, because we are a mixture of both.
No, well, maybe I didn't took this it's bad as a judgment towards myself. Yes, okay, you have these tendencies, we all have these tendencies, just don't follow them. It was a guidance. And yes, and I feel deceived by this guidance. That it is my story. It's like it's my Emperor of United States.
And also there's all the sensation, the grief attached to the being the deceived. It's all that is the meat of where the story is pointing to. That what's still resting in the body to be held and discovered of this being deceived. Because when you can hold all of that to the last, and it reveals itself, you can't go after it. But when you can hold the space for it, bringing up, using the story or the feelings of that deception to allow the body sensations to come up, to be then say, okay, I'm going to be with the body, I'm going to be with that part that is so deceived. little by little, you might be amazed that the whole thing will just dissolve.
Mm.
The story may dissolve, or may just get less, or maybe there'll be a part that can look on it with a smile and say, yeah, it was like that. So the intensity is just pointing here, because everything is our projection.
Ramiz wants to say something.
Oh,
Ramiz?
I had an experience lately. It made me see this, being on this journey in a way as a mirror to my relationship to my father and my mother when I was a child. I woke up like from a nightmare, and I was very scared. My nervous system was really freeze, and this happens occasionally. And in this moment, this happened a lot when I was a child. I woke up in the night, in the dark, and I screamed from my mom. And even when it happens to this day, in this moment, it's not like I'm experiencing a memory. I am in this moment a child, and I'm inwardly screaming for my mom. My body is freeze. I can't move. And I tried to, like, I remembered in this moment to let myself experience this fear, but it was so intense that I couldn't. I just want some comfort. I want to run away. It was very intense. And I remembered also, as a child, I was often sick and go to the doctor. And I was very scared as a child, and I didn't want to go to the doctor, and I was afraid of needles. And I often I was screaming, and I was crying not to go to the doctor or get needles or anything. And when the doctor forced me to get a needle, my father and my mother, they of course agreed with the doctor, and I felt a sense of betrayal, a sense of that the parents that I should trust, they betray me. I can't trust them. They couldn't listen to my cries or my fear, and they had different reactions to my fear that was very confusing for a child. Like, my mom would react, she's very empathetic, that she would feel my fear and it would appear on her face, and it wasn't comforting. Like, she was terrifying and I was terrified. She couldn't do anything, and my father would be yelling at me and shaming me for being scared. And it's very confusing, and I was very scared, and I thought about this fear, how to go into this fear, and it felt like this awakening thing is like the doctor. It felt like it's a process that I need to go through, and maybe like the teachers or the groups, like my mother and mom and dad, and I feel like a sense I can't trust anyone. I'm going into the process that I'm supposed to die at the end. It's like I'm the child here who is screaming for safety, and what I'm being told is just to go to the fear. And there's no way out, and you have to die. So there's a lot of frustration, anger, fear, hopelessness. It's all this cocktail emotions that it feels like paralyzing sometimes
Mm.
to
Mm.
even touch them.
Yeah.
Can I just say quickly, Ramiz, that almost everything you have said is almost exactly the way I feel about my parents, about my fear, about wanting someone to help, about everything you have said is, it's maybe of no help to say that, but I'm just saying I could have said exactly the same story as you, almost word for word.
Mm. And I'd just like to say that here, as your mother, I'm not going to force you to take the needle from the doctor. You can wait until you're ready for it. Mm.
I don't think I have a choice. It's like
Yes. Okay. So how can we be supporting parents for you when you accept that?
I don't know.
Mm. I mean, obviously now you can see, as an adult, you can see that your parents felt that it was in for your good that you took that. But of course, as the child, you felt betrayed. So can we reconcile? Can you go back to that child and take with you the knowledge that your parents' intention was good for you, even though they performed it clumsily?
Honestly, I feel like I'm being possessed by this child that in a way
Okay.
that I can't really see a justification for me, that it feels like everything was just
Yep.
pointless.
Mm.
Why I'm even here?
Mm. Of course, the why question is a diversion. It's a way of you not feeling what you are feeling now, because what you are feeling is not pleasant.
Right now, I feel anger rising.
Yes. To feel anger towards.
You know, because this question, why am I here, is really, my parents were so irresponsible.
Yeah.
To bring me into this world just because my mother wanted to have children.
Mm.
And she is even so proud of herself because she was advised abortion and she didn't aborted me. So noble, so selfless of her. And she is so proud, and I think what she did was despicable.
Yes.
And she even doesn't see it.
Yes.
I'm furious.
Yes, furious, angry. I can see that. Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
It seems funny to say, in a way, it seems weird to say, but had she aborted you, that would have been the right thing to do.
But for her, the wrong, and she would regret it possibly for the rest of her life, and so on. I know she had no choice.
Yeah, yeah.
She thought she had, and she took a very hard choice and selfless choice, and so.
Mhm.
Oh.
But you were the consequence. You were the consequence of that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. It's still a betrayal, a different kind of betrayal, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm. Not the right word.
Well, it's just irresponsibility.
Yeah.
Maybe, as a child, I expect my parents to be responsible.
Mm. So can you I'd locate when you first started to feel this way? I don't imagine you were feeling this way as a toddler, but you might have, but a bit later. How old were you when you first started to feel this?
Teenager.
Oh, okay. Teenager. Yeah. Ah, yes. You have children?
No.
No. Oh, a strong no.
I had a dream once. I gave a birth in this dream, and then I felt such shame. What have I done? What
Yeah.
have I done? Oh my God, it's the worst I could do.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, what an incredible burden you've carried. Yeah.
It feels like Bianca is kind of tugging at threads that if she keeps tugging, just it's all going to spill out. There's so much more to the story, and so much more for her to explore and feel into. Like I keep having the thought that this
Talk
is where,
directly to her. Yeah.
well, my thought is that this is where Jenny or Alan would step in and guide her through all those feelings.
Yeah. They would want to do that. I'm not sure that Bianca's ready for that yet, though. Yeah.
I wonder how much exploration she has done. Have you looked into all of these sorts of things, Bianca?
Well, I'm not sure what kind of exploration you have in mind. I talked on this subject a lot. I talked with my mother, with therapists.
Yeah. Mm. Even though you've thought on it a lot, you've lived with it for a long time. It's been a while since you were a teenager, I guess. I still feel there's some freshness about what you've said tonight. Is that accurate?
Well, I can see how this affects
Ramis?
how I feel about what you say. that there is distrust in me still, and it's like a barrier.
Mm.
And as you say, I don't think I'm ready for being guided by Alan or Jenny,
Yep, yep.
because this distrust will block
Mm.
any attempt to do so, even if I wanted to.
Yep, yep, yep. I feel that too, but I also feel that what you have expressed tonight is preparing you for eventually breaking down that barrier and moving forward, but just not yet.
Yeah.
Just
I'm trying. I'm
yeah.
trying.
I think you're doing well. Yeah.
I'm standing here, banging my head against the wall.
Ah, look, the fact that you've just told us what you've told us is a big thing, I think, a really, really big thing. And that's like, yeah, you're taking the odd brick out of that wall with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe, Bianca, just that very word distrust is somewhere, rather than so many other things that you've already looked at, but just that one word is a word that, how does distrust feel in the body? It would be a way in, like I have this one in me that is this word, which has somehow all my life has been refusal. I mean, it's just the label that I put on it, and it's like, oh, okay, and it morphs. Sometimes there's a word we have that is just like worth investigating in how that feels in the body, just as a start.
Mhm.
The same thing was arising for me. It feels like I can sense an openness to go through a sort of feel into the body exercise with the distrust versus a resistance to feeling into the anger and the fury and the shame. That would you say that there's some truth to that? Exploring the trust issue feels like a safer place than the other things that you described.
I think I have no problem with anger.
Hmm.
With feeling the anger, expressing the anger. It's I don't know, maybe it's more about fear, feeling the fear.
Do you feel a sense of futility? Because you use the analogy of Alzheimer's. Is there some sense that you can't come to understand and find resolution, that it's so distant? Because Alzheimer's, to me, that signals like a connection with decline in faculties and deterioration. So I wonder what you're connecting there with Alzheimer, the state of Alzheimer's.
Yes, it's a state of confusion.
A lack of clarity. So do you have a sense that you can gain clarity through this? You can find clarity? That it's possible?
The word eventually comes to my mind.
Everything can appear. It's I can have a feeling of clarity, but it can be another delusion. Like all surrounding Alzheimer's who have their stories and they are so sure about them.
Yeah.
And a lot of persons saying I have full clarity and believing in that.
So is there some sense of futility that you feel?
Yes, it's like I'm not trusting a sense of clarity, even if it appears.
But it's possible. It's a possibility to come to clarity.
I don't believe it.
Why is that not possible?
I don't see humans as capable of that.
Isn't that another story?
Yes,
Thoughts?
but it's my story.
Yeah. And I think we don't need to pursue that right now. Just, I think, leave her alone for the moment. Let her stew in it. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe if we could just leave off on the note of the possibility of clarity. A light at the end of the tunnel.
It's too early for
Yeah.
that, I think. Yeah.
That's your story.
Yes, I was thinking that. Yeah. Let's just leave that for the moment. Some people need to come in at their own pace. We don't want to push too hard. You notice that I don't ask some people to speak because they're not ready. That's simple. Yeah. They will when they're ready. Ramez did. He's one that I wouldn't ask, and he did. Great. That was really wonderful that he did. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I think that's probably, we've had about enough for tonight, eh? It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes have gone by. Matthias, there is Matthias. Matthias is traveling well, I think.
Yes, but I noticed that I'm not quite far. I'm not nearly as far as I thought I was. No.
Love that. I love that. Yeah.
And I discovered a new word these days. It's called limerence. I had no idea this was actually quite a thing, you know. But you know what does that mean? So, and I've been struggling a lot with this limerence, and you know, just stories and stories and stories in my head. And but I was thinking that maybe this is because my life is so boring, you know. Then there's this hope that things would be better if I was with that person, you know, with that girl, and maybe I must just change this, the way I'm living my life. But I'm not talking about what we already know about. Oh, there's no control, there's no choice. I know on the grand scheme of things, there's no control, there's no choice. But in a conventional sense, there's still choice. So I think that maybe I should. And recently, I was dismissed from my job, because I wasn't selling anything. And now remembering, I can see clearly that was a body no. I didn't like to do that, and now I'm considering doing something else entirely different. And there's a body no to this thing, and this kind of show off a little of this limerence thing. This attachment to this girl.
Mm. You say glimmer?
Limerence. Limerence is it's when you get too attached to loving a person that is not available for you.
Okay. That's a new word for me. Right. Oh, okay. So we have.
And so I've been having stories in my head about this girl, which I actually dated, but she simply out of the blue didn't want nothing anymore with me, and I got very traumatized with this situation. And it's almost a year now since this happened.
So that traumatized feeling, is that rejection? Is that sadness? Is it grief? Is what's traumatized?
I think it's mostly rejection, but the phrase in my head that most moves me is by thinking that I just wanted to be special for her. I wanted to take care of her because she went through a lot of problems. I wanted to be special for her, and this hurts me a lot.
How would that relate to you wanting to be special for you?
Yes, I kind of figured that out, kind of, that it's not about her, it's about me, because I don't feel special myself. I don't love myself, and all of these things, I already thought about that. And so it's just that, it's just kind of the way I grew up. I learned to be that way, so to speak.
Yeah, of course.
This is what led me to thinking about my career, my job, doing something meaningful for my life and do this change and make this change.
So does waking up make you special?
No. And this is something that actually got me quite disappointed, and it was something that was causing me doubt, because nothing was different. So when I saw through the self, nothing's different, and there was this bad feeling, and it was exactly that. I was seeking to be special in this whole enlightenment thing. But I've seen that this is not the case. This won't make me any more special.
Yep. Okay. So you're stuck with that. You have to accept that you're not what she was after.
Yes, for the moment. But the problem is it's the hope, the possibility that might be something in the future.
She'll be married to somebody else and having a child to him before she comes back to you.
No, that would be a problem. Surely, this would be a problem.
So you must be telling yourself stories over and over and over again about hope.
Exactly.
Mm.
Even so, because she was in a very difficult situation. She lost her father in a very tragic accident. Her father got split in half in a work accident. It was very sudden, you know. And after this, some months later, she lost her grandmother from her mother's side. And so actually, I know that she's very, very distressed and confused. So there's this wanting to get near her to help her also. And this I think this kind of make things a little shady, you know. It's hard to have a proper judgment because she is also going through a lot of trouble.
If can you imagine that if she had no problems, if she had an idyllic life, all those bad things that happened to her didn't happen to her, would she have the same attraction to you?
Well, I can see what do you mean, but if we got very literal, actually, I think she has attraction for me. The problem is she doesn't want what is the word that I'm seeking?
Commitment.
Exactly. She doesn't want commitment with me, and she saw that I was getting really into her, so she decided to get away. You know,
you scared her off.
Exactly, but she is attracted to me. You know,
but she's not attracted to
to the idea of commitment. And this I know that this is not something personal with me. You know. Because it's almost a year she didn't got in commitment to anyone, and from what I heard, she is rejecting other people. No, so I don't think this is kind of a personal thing. I think this is some personal stuff of hers.
That doesn't help the way you feel about yourself, though, does it?
No, but this kind of gives hope because, you know, wow, she is gonna sort out all of her things, and maybe she'll be open to let me help her. This creates this kind of hopes.
Yeah. So you're doing a lot of living in the future.
Yes.
Do you try not to do that?
I was trying to, but now I just gave up, and I'm letting it all go. But the problem is this causes distress and anxiety.
Yeah. Well, you're fucked, aren't you? There's no chance of you being happy.
Probably. This is why I'm kind of focusing this career thing, because maybe I have this whole limerence thing because my life is boring and I don't like myself. I don't do anything.
Blah, blah, blah. Thinking too much about it. Yeah. So the present now, that eludes you completely. Yeah.
And life is kind of boring, you know. The only things I used to do is to meditate. I go to the gym and work. I have nothing else to do. And it seems that every kind of hobby or thing that I wanted to do is not a good thing to do. It would be loss of time. No.
They're all diversions. Every one of them is just a diversion. to try and get away from that horrible feeling that you have. Yeah. So what if you stay with the feeling that you have that is not pleasant, not at all pleasant? That feeling of rejection, that feeling of not good enough, that feeling of being bored, all of these horrible feelings. What would happen if you stayed with them without opinion about them, just rested in them? Would they get worse?
No, they don't get worse. They just remain the same. I've tried doing that before giving up. You know?
You've tried doing that, yeah? So you didn't just stay with them, you were attempting to do something to fix them.
And I was just staying with them, but when I realized that it wasn't working, then I also gave up of not thinking. Then I let the stories roll in again. No,
Yep.
I was just staying with the sensations in the body. So it was not working. I just let the thoughts come back.
Mm. So can you tell me what the difference between a thought that you believe and a thought that you don't believe is? What is belief?
I've been questioning myself exactly this. What is belief? So maybe belief is a contraction around the thought.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And so that contraction is holding on to the idea, holding on to the belief, holding on to the thought, that kind of contraction. But it's also interesting that a contraction is the body no. Yeah. So a belief is a body no. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yes, it does. But the problem is like her, for example. I think about, but actually I think that this contraction, it kind of means the opposite thing. Maybe it's just me that I don't want to be with, like the things the way are. So actually I get escaping into this fantasy of being with her.
Mm.
So actually the contraction means the opposite of the thought.
It does the same job, doesn't it? It's a way of you escaping from the horrible feeling. Yeah.
Yes.
So if it takes her 6 months to get through whatever she's going through and to realize that she does want to be with you, what are you going to do for that 6 months? Are you going to suffer for that whole time?
I would like to not suffer for this whole 6 months,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
So you promise yourself that if she says to you, I'll come back to you in 6 months, then you'll feel okay. That's a hollow promise, isn't it?
Yes, that would be quite strange, actually. I would know that she would come back in 6 months.
Yeah.
It would sound very strange, actually.
So it's like there is suffering in success, because the moment we have success, we want to make sure we don't lose it. So we continue to suffer. We suffer when we don't have it. We suffer when we do have it. So if she comes back to you and says, Matthias, I'm here for you, you will still go, oh, I wonder if that's temporary. I wonder if she's going to change her mind again. You will never get out of this suffering. No matter what happens, you will never get out of this suffering. Like I said, you're fucked. That's it.
Totally. Yes, sure.
So if I say to you that the only way out of suffering is through suffering, you go forward through it. You have to accept it. You have to surrender to it. You have to affirm that it is your reality now. That's the only possible
been
way
trying
for
to
you
do
to get
that,
past it.
yes.
Sorry.
I've been trying to do this, but it doesn't seem to be working.
No, of course
Or
not. Of
maybe
course not. Because you've been trying. So when you say, I will try to do something, you're also saying, I won't do it.
Mhm.
It's a binary thing again. You do it or you don't do it. Trying to do it is don't do it. Excuse me.
yes, but it's too strange because yes, I accept this, then thoughts about her come, then I get distressed and just be with it, because that's just what has been happening all along those last few months.
So these thoughts occupy your whole day and even maybe your dreams?
The whole day. I only dreamt about her 2 times, but yes, the whole day, from the moment I wake up to the moment I'm going to sleep.
Mm. Mm. You're hopeless. You're totally hopeless to change this, aren't you? You can't do anything about it. No matter what you do, it's the same.
Yes, now I am hopeless.
Mm. You can't even do giving up. You have no control over anything. It's just going to always be what it's going to be.
No, I don't. That's why I thought actually into kind of fully embracing it, like begin to writing poems and letters to her, not to actually send to her, just to to
Yeah.
give this some kind of
Expression, yes.
yeah. So I just thought about embracing this because I have nothing to do about it.
Yeah. But you're not embracing it. You're trying to fix it. You think that if you embrace it, it will fix it.
Yes.
Which is a way not to fix it. It's a way to keep it. There's nothing you can do. Not a single thing you can do. Not anything. No matter what you do, or what you don't do, what you try or what you don't try, it's all going to end up exactly the same. You cannot do a thing about it.
Maybe the problem is the hope, like we were saying before. Maybe that's the biggest part of the problem.
Well, everything's the problem. It's not just one part of it, it's everything.
Yes.
There's no hope. You're stuck with this until you're not. And you don't have any idea when you won't be. There's not a thing you can do. You cannot fix it. The more you try and fix it, the worse it becomes.
Yes.
If I say all you can do is surrender to it, you can't even do that, because that's still a way to try and fix it.
Yes, because if I surrender, then I'll be assumed that it will go away, and it won't.
No, it won't. Well, it will, but when it won't, it'll happen or not. We have no control over that. See, when you said earlier that you recognize at a certain level there is no control, you were still saying that at another level there is control, and there isn't. Control is a delusion. You have no control at any level over this. Your mind might tell you that you've got control, but that's just your delusion. There is not a single thing you can do. You can't surrender. You can't accept it. You can't fight it. There's nothing, absolutely nothing you can do. If it's going to change, it's got nothing to do with you.
Yes, it would be just fate unfolding.
Just unfolding, just happening. Yeah. But it may not. You may be stuck with this for the rest of your life.
Yes, I already thought about that.
Yeah.
Because when I was researching about this limerence thing, I found out that some people really do get stuck with this for the whole life.
Yeah.
So I've been considering about that.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of especially historical novels about people that get stuck into this state, and they die with it. Absolutely. Yeah. You might die with it. You're only young, but you might have another, I don't know, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years of this. Wow. You'll make a good guide as a result.
At least.
Oh boy. Yeah. Oh, I don't envy you at all. You even thought that if you get enlightened, that would fix it, but it won't. How about that? You could be enlightened and still this won't get fixed.
But
if you were, just imagine that you're enlightened, but it still goes on. What would be different? It's interesting, isn't it? How you can obviously be through the first fetter. You know the delusion of believing in a self actually exists. You're on the path to waking up. You're partially awake. Yet here's this thing. Boy, aren't you lucky? You are really lucky. You've got this to help you on your way. But no, we shouldn't talk about good things. We should only talk about the terrible things that you're stuck with.
Actually, this quite makes me understand a little bit more about that phrase that says samsara is nirvana and nirvana is samsara. I know this is delusion. I know this is an illusion, but it's here. I can't deny it.
Yeah, yeah. You
even
experience.
even though I know it's delusion.
Yeah. There is no help. There is no hope for you. You just have to
Yes,
live with
but
it.
it seems quite strange, you know, how you can be at the same time content, because that's what I've heard, that enlightenment brings contentment, but still have this kind of emotional pain. It's very strange. My mind kind doesn't grasp this
Yes,
yet.
that they can live
No?
together. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But your mind isn't the one to grasp this. You can only experience this. It's way beyond mind's ability to grasp a paradox, a contradiction like this. But yeah, you can experience it. But right now you can't. Right now, it's just an idea right now. Yeah. So when you go to bed tonight, I want you to wallow in the hopelessness of the whole situation. I mean, you can't do anything else, can you, really?
No, I can't.
Do you experience, how can I put it, a transition as you wake up? Do you experience a transition from sleeping and becoming Matthias again?
Yes, not always, but most of the time, yes.
Mm. So it's my theory that when the Buddha was talking about reincarnation, about the death and rebirth, that he was talking about when you go to sleep and when you wake up. And every morning when you wake up, it's a rebirth. Right? And that period, that transition period where you come back into being Matthias, is where you adopt a story about Matthias. You adopt it, you take it in, you put it on like an overcoat or like underwear, if you like, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you put it on again and you become Matthias. And that's the time when you include the chapter about all this suffering. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying change it. I'm just saying investigate it. See if that's what you do when you wake up tomorrow morning. But definitely when you go to bed, wallow in the hopelessness of it all. That's not something you have to do because it will happen automatically. But indulge, allow yourself to feel really bad. If you feel like crying, allow yourself to cry. If you feel angry, allow yourself to feel angry. Allow whatever comes up. And in the morning as you wake, just watch what overcoat you put on. Maybe it can be a different overcoat to the one you normally wear.
Sure, I'll do it. Certainly, I will do it.
Don't make it a job. Just allow what happens. Mm.
So thank you for the advice. I'm sure.
I'm not allowed to call it advice. My wife says, don't give advice, but try it, see what happens.
I'll try it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go to bed now. It's 10 to midnight here.
Sure.
Yeah. Good stuff. Whew.
Yeah.
Heavy stuff, some of that. It's better. Whoa, we've plumbed some depths tonight, haven't we? Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, I'll see
Thank
you.
you. Vince.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Vince.